This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Tributes continue to pour in for Pope Francis.
We don't call him Holy Father for nothing.
I'm John Stolnis.
The White House says it backs Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth amid fresh Pentagon turmoil.
Just fake news.
Sagar Meghani at the White House.
Harvard University suing the Trump administration.
Because I think Harvard's a disgrace.
I'm Clayton Neville.
The Education Department will begin collection next month on student loans that are in default. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
On Wall Street, markets plunged yesterday as President Trump attacked the Fed chairman again. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Wyoming's only abortion clinic is starting to provide abortions again. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Ex-senator's wife could be headed to prison. All ahead on America in the Morning. World reaction to the death of Pope Francis. On Easter Monday, his life and legacy celebrated amongst papal experts, historians, and millions of Catholics around the world. More from correspondent John Stolnis.
Thousands of people filled St. Peter's Square yesterday to say a rosary prayer and remember the beloved pontiff. The Vatican says the Pope died of a stroke that resulted in a coma and heart failure. He was 88. Last seen on Easter Sunday on the balcony above the square, Pope Francis blessed the crowd and wished them a happy Easter, even riding in the Pope-mobile through the crowd on Sunday for the final time. Across Latin America, church bells rang out celebrating the life of the first Latin American pope. The cardinal vicar for the Diocese of Rome, Baldassare Reina, announced the pope's death during Mass in the Basilica of St. John Lateran. Here in the U.S., President Trump honoring the pope during the annual Easter egg roll at the White House.
The flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man, worked hard. He loved the world, and it's an honor to do that.
New York Archbishop Timothy Dolan said, "You couldn't have choreographed his death any better."
We don't call him Holy Father for nothing. He's the father of our family, and there's a death in the family, and we're saddened.
Last night, a memorial mass was held for the Pope at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington. Here, Cardinal Christophe Pierre said Pope Francis's message of hope never changed.
That's his legacy, in a way, the Jubilee of hope. Why did the Pope choose to have a Jubilee of hope? Precisely because we live in a world which, in some way, is so much in love with itself, its idea, its ideology, and that's lost the sense of hope. Thank God for Pope Francis.
The Vatican says he wanted to be buried at St. Mary Major Basilica in Rome, as opposed to the Vatican, where other popes are buried. His funeral will likely be at the end of this week. I'm John Stolnis.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is accused of using the app Signal to relay sensitive military information to people, including his wife, following the firing of 3 key staffers due to alleged leaks. Meantime, President Trump says he's standing by Hegseth to lead the Pentagon. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani is following details.
The White House says it backs Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth amid fresh Pentagon turmoil. Media reports indicate Hegseth shared sensitive military details in another Signal chat. The first time was in a chat that mistakenly included a reporter. This time, his wife and brother were in the chat.
It's just fake news. They just bring up stories. I guess it sounds like disgruntled employees. You know, he was put there to get rid of a lot of bad people, and that's what he's doing. So you don't always have friends when you do that.
The latest revelation comes after Hegseth dismissed several senior aides amid an internal probe over information leaks.
Here we go again. Just a waste of time. He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job.
Thanks, sir.
Ask the Houthis how he's doing.
Both President Trump and Hegseth are defiant.
This is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me.
But neither man denied Hegseth shared the information.
You know, what a big surprise that a bunch of a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't give back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter.
Top Democrats are calling for him to be fired.
It's against the rules in the Department of Defense, which he heads, and there needs to be an investigation and accountability for this. We can't have a Secretary of Defense sharing operational information to people he shouldn't. Ultimately, this Secretary of Defense needs to either resign or be fired.
Sagar Meghani at the White House.
The U.S. Department of Education says pay up. That's when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Round 2 of rains in flooded areas. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
A pattern of repeated disorganized disturbances from today into the second half of this week will mean that some areas of the plains finally get some drought relief due to rain and thunderstorms. However, this rain will not be confined solely to areas that actually need it, with rounds of rain also expected over portions of the south that were overrun by historic flooding rainfall earlier this month. Through Friday, places from the Dakotas to Texas, eastward to the Carolinas, and northward into parts of the Ohio Valley and Midwest can expect off and on precipitation, with the north side of today's rain favoring the zone from northern North Dakota to Iowa and northern Illinois, while the southern zone covers places from southern Virginia to the Texas Gulf Coast. Farther to the west in Texas and northward into Kansas, a different threat emerges, with this week instead bringing daily rounds of thunderstorms that may turn severe through at least Thursday. Today's severe weather risk extends from south of I-10 in West Texas through most of the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles and into central Kansas by late this afternoon and especially into tonight. Storms may bring large hail, strong winds, and even a few tornadoes. A similar risk area and set of hazards is expected for Wednesday, also reaching northward into central Nebraska by this time. For the rest of the nation, a storm exiting New England means that showers gradually push offshore of the Northeast, with a dry and milder Tuesday for many in that region. Dry conditions are also in store for a good majority of the West, with rather warm conditions persisting over much of the Southwest. Warm to downright hot weather can be expected over central Florida, leading to a heightened fire risk due to breezy conditions. In Seattle, look for sun much of the time today and a high of 60. For Atlanta, watch for a thunderstorm today with a high of 75. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Harvard University announced it's suing the Trump administration over a funding freeze surrounding what President Trump calls antisemitism. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The Trump administration promised to freeze more than $2 billion in multi-year grants and contracts at Harvard and has threatened the school's tax-exempt status and also launched an investigation into the university's foreign funding. The lawsuit comes as President Trump's anti-Semitism task force says it's looking into schools that it believes failed to adequately protect Jewish students during on-campus pro-Palestinian demonstrations last year.
I think Harvard's a disgrace. I think what they did was a disgrace.
President Trump told reporters it's something universities have to be very careful with.
Very anti-Semitic when you take a look.
Harvard University has officially filed suit arguing the financial freeze has violated the university's constitutional rights. In a statement, University President Alan Garber said that research at risk by the funding cuts includes work into childhood cancer and infectious disease outbreaks. He said the consequences of what he called the government's overreach will be severe and long-lasting. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Department of Education is poised to resume collections on defaulted federal student loans, as close to 60% of the nearly 43 million borrowers are behind on payments. A closer look from correspondent Lisa Dwyer.
The Education Department will begin collection next month on student loans that are in default, including the garnishing of wages for potentially millions of borrowers. Currently, roughly 5.3 million borrowers are in default on their federal student loans. Beginning May 5th, the department will begin involuntary collection through the Treasury Department's offset program, which withholds payments from the government, including tax refunds, federal salaries, and other benefits from people with past due debts to the government. After a 30-day notice, the department will also begin garnishing wages for borrowers who are in default. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Lower interest rates, Trump demands, when America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Another roller coaster for markets. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after an ugly sell-off for stocks yesterday. President Trump again attacking Fed Chair Jay Powell, destabilizing markets. The Dow tanked 970 points. The S&P 500 index down more than 120, and the NASDAQ plunged more than 400 points.
We have seen, one of the biggest sell-offs of the past decade in the stock market, these tariffs and how the U.S. is going to navigate this trade war. That is the number one biggest uncertainty that companies, business leaders, investors are facing right now. And the bad news is that a lot of traders are not expecting that to calm down anytime soon.
The Wall Street Journal's Gunjan Banerjee on CNBC. The dollar fell to its weakest in 3 years yesterday, gold hitting another record high as investors flee to safety. President Trump attacking Fed Chair Jay Powell, again demanding that the Fed lower interest rates to help offset the pain of his tariffs. While some investors say the Fed must maintain independence.
Somebody needs to turn to the camera and tell the president to stop. I mean, he is messing with the foundation of this country. He's messing with the foundation of the economy. He's messing with America's place in the global financial system.
That's CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Leisman. Meantime, executives from retailers Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, and Target were at the White House meeting with President Trump yesterday to talk about trade and to plead their case for him to stop the tariffs. The index of leading economic indicators not looking good at all, with its biggest drop in more than a year and a half.
Into the red, minus 0.7%. That's a bigger negative than we were expecting, and 4 months have been negative in a row.
CNBC's Rick Santelli. The leading economic index from the Conference Board provides an early indication of significant turning points in the business cycle and where the economy is heading in the near term. Automakers start reporting results today.
The Q1 results, that's a little bit of what people will be watching, but more importantly, it's the commentary about the second quarter and the remainder of this year, what's going to happen with tariffs. Was there a sales boost in March because so many dealers said, yes, we'll take as many as we can get before the tariffs kick in? Also, what are the plans for managing tariff impacts? No comments yet from any automakers about adding actual production plants. Meanwhile, when you look at Tesla, will Elon Musk during the conference call signal that there is an end date for his work with the Trump administration?
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. Tesla has lost almost half its value since the start of the year. Its results will be out after the bell this afternoon. On today's watch list, we get earnings from Tesla, 3M, Verizon, Lockheed Martin, and that's just to name a few.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, convicted ex-senator's wife now awaits sentencing after these messages. As a lawsuit works its way through the courts, abortions resume in Wyoming. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Wyoming's only abortion clinic is starting to provide abortions again after a judge suspended 2 state laws. One law requires abortion clinics to be licensed as outpatient surgical centers, and the other requires women planning a medication abortion to have an ultrasound. Wellspring Health Clinic in Casper, Wyoming, has not provided abortions since February 28th. That's because of the licensing law. Now, women will once again be able to get abortions in central Wyoming, while the 2 laws continue to be fought in court. The clinic and others are suing to challenge the laws and Wyoming abortion bans that were blocked by another judge. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The wife of former U.S. Senator Bob Menendez could be headed to prison following her conviction in a bribery scheme. Here's the latest from correspondent Julie Walker.
Nadine Menendez, the wife of former Senator Bob Menendez, was convicted Monday of teaming up with her husband to accept bribes of cash, gold bars, and a Mercedes from 3 New Jersey men looking for help with their business dealings or legal troubles. The jury returned its verdict in the same federal courthouse in Manhattan, where a different jury convicted Bob Menendez of many of the same charges last year. The Democrat is supposed to begin serving an 11-year prison term in June. The evidence shown to the jurors over a 3-week trial followed the timeline of the whirlwind romance between the couple that began in early 2018. During the trial, prosecutors said they were partners in crime. Both Nadine and Bob Menendez say they are innocent. Julie Walker, New York.
It was on this date in 1864 Congress passed the Coinage Act, permitting the inscription, "In God We Trust," to be placed on all coins. America in the Morning for Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour, plans for Pope Francis' funeral.
Cleaning up and recovering from another string of deadly tornadoes in parts of the Midwest. I'm Clayton Neville.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's purse was stolen at a Washington, D.C. restaurant on Easter evening. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The Supreme Court seems likely to uphold a key provision of the Affordable Care Act. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Trump's FTC is suing Uber. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
The choice of a new pope is imminent, and there are some films to offer some background to the process. I'm Kevin Carr.
And the White House hosts thousands in this annual tradition. Back after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. There is the threat of severe weather today for many. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton with a forecast.
The zone from the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles to Oklahoma City and mainly western Kansas looks to become rather active through at least Thursday as wave after wave of energy charges across the nation in a rather fast-moving pattern. Persistent southerly flow off the Gulf will ensure plenty of moisture and warmth to fuel daily thunderstorms that may turn severe at times, with today's severe risk the highest from the Big Bend of Texas, north and east toward the Emporia and Manhattan, Kansas areas. AccuWeather severe weather experts say that large hail and damaging winds will be possible with these storms through Thursday, with the risk for some tornadoes as well, likely extending through at least Wednesday. This rather unchanging pattern also poses the risk for flooding, unfortunately in some of the same parts of the South and Midwest that have been hampered by flooding from several inches of rain in recent weeks, including earlier this month. While the rain should be largely beneficial across much of the drought-stricken plains, a large area from the Mississippi River Valley into western Kentucky is still recovering from river rises, and any remaining floodwaters may lead to worsening conditions through this week as daily rain and thunderstorms return. Otherwise for today, a cold front clearing the northeast coast brings to an end any lingering rain over New England, but the tail end of that storm never quite exits the southeast, meaning thunderstorms from southern Virginia to southeast Texas. Another disturbance brings showers and storms from Iowa and northern Illinois into western Wisconsin, with showers and some steadier rain extending toward the Canadian border with Montana. The rest of the west looks dry, with warm conditions over much of the interior southwest and a developing fire risk over central Florida. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Pope Francis, the 88-year-old leader of the Roman Catholic Church, passed away on Easter Monday. History's first Latin American pontiff died of a stroke that led his heart to fail and had been dealing with health issues since February when he was hospitalized with double pneumonia. Benstown Audio produced a tribute in memory of Pope Francis.
The world is mourning the passing of the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires on December 17, 1936, Pope Francis was the first pope from the Americas and the Southern Hemisphere. He joined the Society of Jesus in 1958 and was ordained a priest in 1969. Serving as the Archbishop of Buenos Aires from 1998, he became a cardinal in 2001. Following the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI in 2013, he was elected the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, choosing the name Francis in honor of Saint Francis of Assisi.
Habemus papam, qui sibi nomen imposuit Franciscum.
Somos todos hijos de Dios y Dios nos quiere como estamos y con la fuerza que luchamos cada uno por nuestra dignidad.
Pope Francis's legacy is marked by his dedication to compassion, humility, and a church that embraces all. The world remembers Pope Francis.
As you might imagine, tributes from around the world have been pouring in for Pope Francis, from holy sites in Jerusalem to churches in India, South America, at New York City's St. Patrick's Cathedral, and from President Trump, who announced he would be leading the U.S. delegation to attend the pontiff's funeral. More on those arrangements from correspondent Charles de Ledesma.
I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man, worked hard, he loved the world, and it's an honor to do that.
As the faithful collect in St. Peter's Square in Rome, a banner was unfurled and bells rang at a church in New Delhi to commemorate the death of Pope Francis on Monday. Father Vincent Cresta, parish priest of St. Louis Church Defence Colony, tells the AP, "We're very sad to lose such a saintly man, one with so much humility."
It's a great loss for the Catholic Church, and we'll really miss him. And he was really a shining example for all the world.
And in Jerusalem, Brooke Werp from Kansas City, Kansas, says she welcomed a progressive pope.
Well, he was a very progressive pope. I think as a kid, I always remembered him saying that dogs go to heaven, which was a very big deal as a young child. I remember talking about that a lot in school. So hopefully we have someone who's equally as progressive or even more. I think that would be really great for the church.
Many recall Francis's legacy as the first pope from Latin America and the first Jesuit to reach the pinnacle of church hierarchy, one who stressed humility over hubris for a church beset with conflicts.
This Easter Monday, hearing the news of our Holy Father's passing over, here we are at the greatest prayer of all, the holy sacrifice of the Mass, which we offer, asking the Lord's mercy on his immortal soul, thanking God for the gift that he was to us, and asking for consolation upon God's family.
I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The funeral for Pope Francis will follow centuries of Catholic tradition, but is expected to be somewhat simplistic. The Holy See announced that the Pope's remains will be transferred to St. Peter's Basilica for public viewing as soon as tomorrow. The Vatican has yet to release any details for his upcoming funeral, but in accordance with his wishes, Francis is expected to be buried at the ancient Basilica of St. Mary Major, which lies outside the Vatican walls. Starting today, the College of Cardinals will begin gathering in Vatican City to formally discuss funeral plans and, after, begin the process of choosing a successor. Shifting gears, a large swath of the Midwest, from Texas to Arkansas and Missouri to Illinois, are recovering from a string of deadly Easter weekend tornadoes and severe flash flooding. Here's an update from correspondent Clayton Neville.
At least 4 people dead in Oklahoma after severe weather tore through parts of the state. More than a dozen high water rescue calls reported over the weekend in Moore, that's just south of Oklahoma City. And in Oklahoma County, a 12-year-old boy and his mother were swept away by floodwaters.
With flash flooding, particularly in areas where there's a lot of pavement, a lot of runoff, those can happen literally in just a few seconds, and before you know it, you're actually in potentially dangerous water.
David Barnes is the emergency management chief in Oklahoma County and spoke with KOCO-TV in Oklahoma City.
A lot of people may not realize that it just takes a few inches of water to cause a vehicle to float or to move. It doesn't take the 3 feet or whatever, and we can find ourselves in a very desperate situation, as we saw sadly over the weekend.
A 7-year-old girl also reported to have been swept away in high water. And in other parts of the Midwest, it was the tornado threat that had many on edge. Jesse Hawila is a meteorologist for WFAA-TV in Dallas and says nearly 10 tornadoes were reported in North Texas alone.
Those 9 tornado reports all west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in North Texas, from Erath County to Hood County, all the way over to Parker County.
In Middle Missouri, thousands of customers lost power when severe storms moved through, triggering tornado warnings and leading to damaged roofs and downed trees. The cleanup now beginning. I'm Clayton Neville.
Among the items we're covering next, former Alaska governor appears before a judge, and Uber sued by the feds. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. Vice President J.D. Vance, who visited with Pope Francis over the weekend before he passed away, has arrived in New Delhi, where he's holding talks with India's Prime Minister Modi. Discussions will include tariffs and work on a bilateral trade deal. The U.S. is India's largest trading partner. The nations have set an ambitious target of more than doubling their bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030. If achieved, the trade deal could significantly enhance economic ties between the two countries and potentially strengthen diplomatic bonds as well. It happens in places like restaurants where a person can have their wallet stolen or their purse taken. Believe it or not, even in Washington, D.C. However, as Lisa Dwyer reports, it's both unusual and shocking when the pilfered purse belongs to the Secretary of Homeland Security, who was being guarded at the time by members of the Secret Service.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's purse was stolen at a Washington, D.C. restaurant on Easter evening. The department did not specify what was stolen, but says that the thief took about $3,000 in cash, as well as Noem's keys, driver's license, passport, checks, makeup bag, medication, and her Homeland Security badge. The department says that Noem had the money in her purse to buy gifts for her children and grandchildren and to pay for Easter dinner along with other activities. The Secretary of Homeland Security is protected by U.S. Secret Service agents. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Despite a legal challenge, it appears the justices of the U.S. Supreme Court are lining up to uphold a key piece of the Affordable Care Act after a Monday hearing. Correspondent Ed Donahue has the latest.
The Supreme Court seems likely to uphold a key provision of the Affordable Care Act. It's the preventative care provision of what's also called Obamacare. The plaintiffs argued requirements to cover things like statins to prevent heart disease, lung cancer screenings, HIV prevention drugs, and medication to lower the chance of breast cancer for high-risk women are unconstitutional because a volunteer board of medical experts that recommended them should have been approved by the Senate. The challengers also have raised religious and procedural objections to some of the requirements. The Trump administration defended the mandate before the court, but President Trump has been a critic of the law. Conservative Justices Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, along with the 3 liberals on the court, appear skeptical of the arguments. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Also in a courtroom, this one in New York City, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin gave testimony at her New York Times defamation trial. An update from correspondent Julie Walker.
Former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin testifies at her defamation trial against the New York Times that an editorial in the paper in 2017 was a game changer in her life that, quote, kicked the oomph out of her. The former Republican candidate for vice president answered questions on Monday in Manhattan federal court at a trial of her claims against the newspaper. The Times ran a correction in less than a day to an editorial that falsely stated that Palin's Political Action Committee had contributed to an atmosphere of violence before a 2011 mass shooting in Arizona. But Palin says the correction did not name her and could not restore her reputation. Julie Walker, New York.
With members of his victims' families appearing in court, a Texas state judge sentenced Patrick Crusius, a self-described white nationalist with a history of mental illness, to life in prison on Monday for killing 23 people and injuring 22 others in 2019 at a Walmart store in El Paso. Crusius had pled guilty to capital murder, which automatically comes with a life sentence. He will have no chance for parole. Crusius had already been sentenced by a federal judge last year to 90 consecutive life terms after he pled guilty to federal hate crime charges. America in the Morning continues. Uber has been sued by the FTC for deceptive practices related to their monthly subscription pricing. Chuck Palm has more in today's Tech Report.
The FTC has sued Uber Technologies, accusing it of signing up Uber One subscribers without their knowledge and lying about the service. Uber has falsely claimed that users would save about $25 a month through the Uber One service and deceived them about how easy it was to cancel. The service costs about $9.99 a month and offers discounts on fees associated with Uber's ride-hailing and food delivery apps. FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson said that Americans are tired of getting signed up for unwanted subscriptions that seem impossible to cancel. He went on to say that the Trump-Vance FTC is fighting back on behalf of the American people. Noah Edwardson, an Uber spokesperson, said in an email that the company is disappointed by the FTC's complaint, but that it's confident the courts will rule in its favor. Bitcoin trading up at 87,000 and Ethereum slightly down at 1,575. For more, find me at chuckpalm.com.
With the Tuesday Sports Clipboard, here's our Robert Workman.
NBA playoffs continue with the first round on Monday. The Pistons nipped the Knicks 194 to tie their East series at 1-all. 33 points for Cade Cunningham.
Game one, dropping that game, just finding a way to maintain our poise, collect ourselves again, and get back going. I think we did a great job of that tonight.
The win snaps a 15-game playoff losing streak for Detroit, dating back to the 2008 Eastern Conference Finals. Out west, the Clippers tripped the Nuggets 105-102, 39 for Kawhi Leonard. That series is tied 1-1. The NBA Draft Lottery is set for May 12th and the draft itself June 25th. But as of yesterday, we have a pretty good idea who the number one overall pick is going to be. National Player of the Year Cooper Flagg announced he's leaving Duke after his freshman season to turn pro. Stanley Cup playoffs first round Monday. In the East, the Capitals coughed up a 2-goal lead in the third period, but Alex Ovechkin's second of the night beat the Canadiens in overtime 3-2 in that series opener. In the West, the Jets shaded the Blues 2-1 for a 2-0 lead. Colin Blackwell's OT winner lifted the Stars over the Avalanche 4-3. That ties that series at a game apiece. And the Kings took a wild game one at home 6-5 over the Oilers. Baseball, the Astros blistered the Blue Jays 7-0. Hunter Brown and Forrest Whitley combined on a 2-hitter. The Red Sox darned the White Sox in the annual Patriots Day game at Fenway Park. Meantime, John Career won the Boston Marathon in the second fastest time ever, 2 hours, 4 minutes, 45 seconds. That's less than 2 minutes off the course record. Career's brother Wesley won the race 13 years ago, making them the first brothers to both win in Boston. Sharon Lucchetti set a new women's record, 2:17:22, more than 2.5 minutes ahead of the old mark set in 2014. That's Tuesday Sports.
Kids are on a roll at the White House when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. Following the passing of Pope Francis, there have been some movies that have looked into the process of choosing a new leader of the Roman Catholic Church. Kevin Carr explains.
With the death of Pope Francis, all eyes have turned to the Vatican. There have been multiple films about popes. However, a few films look at the papal conclave process specifically.
Well Cardinal Lawrence.
It seems the responsibility for the conclave falls upon you.
The supervision of the selection. It's a duty I never thought I'd have to perform.
The Oscar-winning drama Conclave tells the story of political infighting and skullduggery in the College of Cardinals during the process.
This is a conclave, Aldo. It's not a war.
It is a war.
For an even more sensationalized film, you can check out Ron Howard's Angels and Demons.
I need access to the Vatican archives.
Access to the archives is only by written decree by the Holy Father.
Fellas, you called me.
Be aware that as a Hollywood blockbuster, it's fraught with conspiracy theory nonsense and tabloid fodder.
The Illuminati were a secret society dedicated to scientific truth.
Probably the most down-to-earth look at the inner workings of the Vatican, as well as being about Pope Francis specifically, is Netflix Oscar-nominated The Two Popes.
Popes can't resign. If you do this, you will damage the papacy forever.
I can no longer sit on the chair of St. Peter.
The film tells the story of the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI and his meetings with soon-to-be Pope Francis.
You're very popular.
I just try to be myself.
Whenever I try to be myself, people don't seem to like me very much.
Conclave is available on demand. Angels and Demons is on Hulu, and The Two Popes can be found on Netflix. I'm Kevin Carr.
It's a long-standing tradition at the White House that dates all the way back to 1878, including the President and First Lady, pomp and circumstance, lots of kids, and, of course, the Easter Bunny. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports on Monday's annual White House Easter egg roll.
The White House has continued a long-standing tradition, holding the annual Easter egg roll under overcast skies. On the South Lawn, the Marine Corps band played as some raindrops hit the thousands gathered.
It's a beautiful day today. We don't have to worry about sunburn.
The president noted the whole place looked spiffy as he stood alongside an Easter Bunny mascot and the First Lady, who helped him start some egg races before they both sat with kids writing cards to troops.
PJ Funny Bunny was a very busy bunny.
And she read Bunny with a Big Heart out loud. The egg roll is among the oldest traditions here, dating to the Rutherford B. Hayes administration in 1878. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
It was in 1974 that the modern Easter egg roll race began using spoons borrowed from the White House kitchen. And at her first Easter egg roll back in 1933, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt greeted visitors and listeners for the first time on a new technological wonder, the radio. America in the Morning for Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.